News that we are following. Again, this is kind of starting to get to the fun part of the offseason. I think you agree with me, where like it's a little bit more relaxed, it's a little bit more subdued. You can kind of wait for the Senior Bowl, then it's the Combine Owners Meeting, but there's not really that much craziness or hecticness happening until you get to free agency and then ultimately the NFL draft. The one thing that we are both still chasing and monitoring and watching, aside from like, again, I do both Giants and Jets, is the Giants filling out their coaching staff. Is the Jets still have that defensive coordinator vacancy?
Yeah.
They released the list of names of the candidates that they interviewed with. You know, it's funny. People were like, oh, who are the Jets talking to? Who are the Jets talking to? Like, we knew that Wink Martindale was going to interview. We knew that Jim Leonard was going to interview. I remember calling a coaching agent this week and was like, hey, man, was just curious. Like, he's very, very plugged in. Like, these coaching agents all know every single agent. Like, they all know where every coach is being interviewed and talking to. So I called him. I was like, hey, man, I was like, it's been real quiet on, like, the Jets defensive coordinator front. Like, what have you heard? Like, who's been interviewing? He goes, so I had one of my guys interview. If you don't mind, keep it on the down low. He goes, because the Jets have told all of us, do not tell the media who is interviewing or where you're interviewing. We do not want this. We want to keep it completely and totally in-house. So the reason why there haven't been any breaks as far as like who's interviewing other than Wink, which obviously got out, is because the Jets have said, like, keep this in-house, like, keep this under wraps. Of those candidates that had their virtual interviews with the Jets, their first round of interviews, the two main names I think that stood out as far as notable people that guys are going to be clamoring for, number one, Jim Leonard, and number two, Wink Martindale. Zach, you and I have both heard the exact same thing. And this is another thing that Jet fans have gotten furious with me over. And it's been, it's January. It's been Blockuary for me because I just... Maybe it's like being a father now and like dealing with the stresses of parenthood and the stresses of like just your everyday life. Like I don't have time to deal with like people just ripping me. So like anytime I go online, and you guys all like get on us about like we want news. You get news and you hand out the news. To then have like my inbox just flooded, my mentions flooded with like fake sources. You don't know anything. Nobody is talking to you. Nobody's saying anything. This is total BS. Connor doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, bro, I've said this before. I'll say it again. This is not a hobby. Like, Zack talks to people within the Jets building. I talk to people within the Jets building. All of those people that I used to talk to within the Jets building since 2014 that have been fired or gone on and gotten promoted, I still talk to all of those people around the NFL. Those people hear things and then they tell you because you create relationships and then you take those and you take them to people and you get stuff confirmed and that's how you report things. Some of those like major transactions as far as like this guy actually signed, this guy actually like was hired, those sort of things, the non-rumblings, the finalized stuff, that is immediately handed out to people that are so much bigger than me and bigger than Zack, and it's just how this business works. But those rumblings you do get, and when we get those rumblings, we let you guys know. So when we said, hey, keep an eye on Wink Martindale, there was a reason for it because we knew the guy was going to interview for the job. And when we're saying, hey, you might want to still keep an eye on this guy, it's because both of us are hearing he's right now the favorite for the job. So like, yeah, things can change with in-person interviews. This is obviously a very fluid situation, but like that stuff, man, it drives me nuts. So like, but what did crack me up is like I would say, and actually the 2% of this equation are the ones that I really respect. The 98% of the people that were like, stop covering this team. We don't want you to cover me. You don't know anything. Like, you're not even reporting this team. You don't get any news. All of them followed me. Like they all were like, people were like, stop talking about the Jets. Go cover the Giants full time. I'm like, I click and I'm like, you follow me still. So the ones that were actually hate tweeting me that didn't follow me, those guys didn't get blocked. Those guys I kept because those guys I respect. Like if you're searching me out to like trash me and you don't even follow me, like kudos to you. That's elite level hating. It's like the guy that in Arizona who like yelled down I sucked. Like that guy was like one of my favorite interactions with any fan. But anything you want to add to Leonard or after my little mini rant there, anything you want to add on Leonard or Wink?
I can talk about this group of candidates broadly, I'd say. So first, I would say Matt Arujau, the guy from the Dolphins, he was kind of the biggest unknown out of that group. He got hired by the Jaguars, apparently, so I guess he's off the board. Out of this group, obviously, like you said, Wink and Jim Leonard are the most interesting ones. I think Leonard is the one that the fans want the most. I think he's the best candidate on the list in terms of like if you want to bank on somebody who hasn't done it in the NFL, but he was a really good defensive play caller in college. He was thought of well enough in Denver that he was there for 1 year and they promoted him to assistant head coach, and he's been under Vance Joseph. But if Joseph gets a job, he's going to replace him, and I don't know that he's going to take his first opportunity here, which is something that you and I have talked about, and I wrote about this the other day. This is not ultimately an appealing job, and so that's why the list came out, and it was a lot of
I do have one thing to add to that, yeah. Can I interrupt you real quick for 1 second? Can you hold hit pause? So I did say this. I was actually talking to NYJ Max, that same coaching agent that I was talking to, incredibly plugged in. Like he's been a very, very helpful resource to me. This dealing with the Giants search that they've had and several other things. He wouldn't give me the names, and then I confirmed it with another coach who also he's like, I don't want to embarrass like the Jets to like say it. But they did reach out to what I heard 2 of the big name defensive coordinating candidates who were available, and both candidates just weren't interested in working for the Jets and Aaron Glenn at this time, which I understand. Like it's a team that's not going to be very good next year. If you're a major name defensive coordinator, you're going to have like major suitors. So they just weren't interested in talking to the Jets. That's not entirely uncommon. People got super angry about the Jets not putting in requests to interview Ben Johnson last year. Ben Johnson let it be known to the Jets, like, if you send an interview request, I'm not going to take it. Like, I'm not going to interview with you. So a lot of times these, like, major candidates who are going to have a slew of interviews and definitely know they're going to get a job, like those major defensive coordinating candidates, they're going to be picky with their jobs, and the Jets just weren't necessarily an opportunity they wanted to take. So this wasn't like Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji were intentionally ignoring the top candidates out there are only trying to go for these like smaller guys aside from Wink and Jim. It's just some of the people that they reached out to just weren't necessarily interested in the opening. Back to you, Zach. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Which was what I was pretty much about to say, and then you hit the reporting part of it. Yeah, I've heard that too. No, you're good. You're good. No, I wasn't saying that because you dove into more deeply like specifics. I'd say I've heard that broadly. That code there's been beyond even just the 2 that you mentioned. I think there's been more than that were like, no, thank you. I don't really want to take that interview.
I just heard it. Unfortunately, I heard 2 specifically sets, but I didn't hear any. Maybe it was more.
But yeah, just back to the Jim Leonard thing. I'd say Wink, like you said, he's the favorite. If we get through this week and they still haven't hired him, then that would probably mean they want Jim Leonard in for a second interview, and they can't do that until after the Broncos season is over. I'd say on this list, like if we're saying, okay, let's say it's not Wink Martindale, Jim O'Neill is interesting just because he's a guy that Aaron Glenn coached with in Detroit. He was on his staff. Aaron Glenn was on his staff in Cleveland when Jim O'Neill was a defensive coordinator. So O'Neill has experience. And Jim Leonard actually was in Cleveland too as a player at that time. I actually heard from somebody outside of the building that people on the Jets staff were given off the impression they thought that Chris Harris was getting like a legit shot at it. Huh. I'd be surprised at that. I think he got his second interview in person, but he's already in the building. That doesn't count either for They need to do the Rooney Rule. They need to talk to 2 minority candidates before they can hire anybody in person. So, but yeah, Chris Harris, I think he's someone who'll be on the staff still. I'd be surprised if it'd be hard to sell Chris Harris as your DC after the way last season went, even removing his 3 games as DC, which were kind of a tough spot for him anyway. Their defensive backfield got 0 interceptions, and I don't think the corners, like over the course of the season, played great. So that would be hard to sell. I think he sticks. As for the rest of the staff, what I've heard, I know for sure that the O-line coach, Steve Hayden, the tight ends coach, and who's the other one? Wide receiver, Sean Jefferson, they're all for sure back. Defensive position coaches are all kind of in a holding pattern right now until they hire the DC. Like I think the DC is going to have a say in who comes back, and so those guys are kind of like just waiting to hear their fate. And I haven't heard. I've been digging. I've been trying to find out if Charles London, because that's the one fans keep asking about. I don't know if he's coming back or not. It would be kind of strange to me that if we've gone this long and it hadn't gotten out that he'd been fired. So it feels like he's coming back, but I can't say that with 100% certainty. I'm still trying to find that out.
Yeah. I will say one more note on Wink, because the one thing that I think a lot of people have thought is like, how would his personality and Aaron Glenn's personality mesh? Because again, Glenn was the guy that didn't want Aaron Rodgers in here because, what he might be, because of his personality and his presence and what that might be saying in the back of a room. And Wink is obviously a very, very big personality and very, very big presence. Yeah. From my understanding, Wink and Aaron have been talking to each other dating back to like when the regular season was still happening. I think the earliest communication between them was in December-ish or something like that. So these two have been talking about a potential partnership for a while. Now, whether it actually gets across the finish line, we'll see. Again, the Jets are interviewing other candidates. We've seen the guys that are there. Maybe somebody steps into the room and wows them. The most famous example of that is Mike Tomlin was a Rooney Rule interview with the Steelers, blew them away in the interview, and they're like, yeah, we're going to hire this guy. And you saw what happened over the next, almost 2 decades. So maybe something changes, but that's how long these conversations with Wink and the Jets have been going on.